Hey guys, this is Mike
And Joe,
from Deep Wood, Force of Will again.
we're back again. 2 videos in a week. What
Yeah,
a
that's
weird
way
thing.
more than we usually do.
Well, welcome back to the Winds of the Anonymous Moon set review. Next up, we're tackling water and wind in that order.
Yep, basically the same order it is in the set. We're not going to beat around the bush at all in this one. We're just going to go right in. Again, we're using the exact same star system as we saw in the last one. If you don't know, if you haven't seen the last video, go check it out. We explain the star system there.
Yep. Basically, 5 stars is good, 1 star bad.
Everything else, fair game. Alright, so jumping right into it. First is water, and we have Analyst of the Ocean Floors, Allosaurus.
Yeah. We finally get a peek back at Allosaurus, who we haven't seen since either Think Golf 3 or actually no, we did see him in Echoes, right?
Yeah, did we? I don't think we did.
I think we saw him in Echoes. Anyway, it's a 3-will, 6/7 Resonator Wizard, more wizard support. Wow. Target J Resonator gains -4 attack until end of turn. That's for 1 time will, and then 3 time wills return target non-magic stone, non-J roller entity to its owner's hand. I have no clue what Force Will is taking as a direction with this card, besides the art style being pretty cool.
Allosaurus always just looks cool aesthetically, but each of the effects, especially being a 3-cost 6/7, the stats are a little bit lower. The -400 attack around like turn 3 to turn 4 just really stops mattering, especially because you have to use such specific will to do it.
Yeah, it's like completely irrelevant. I mean, it works with Time Spinning Witch because she can produce that time will for him, but even then, he's still understated for. It reminds me of like a golem.
Yeah, that's kind of the feeling I'm getting to. And with the 3-cost return targets thing to the hand, pretty much, you're only really going to want to do that when your Time Spinning Witch is flipped, and at that point you already have a game plan in mind. Allosaurus is not going to be really doing much to advance your board state.
The worst part is that second effect costs more time will than the Judgmented Time Spinning Witch can produce, so you're going to have to tap a stone in order to put into that, and that's way too much effort for a 3-drop 6/7 terrible card, 1 star.
Yep. Next up, going into elemental support, the blue leaf. We've already seen the red and white leaves compared. This one's pretty simple. You banish it to return target resonator with total cost 2 or less to the hand. And if you drop it from the hand and pay 1, you return something with total cost 1 or less to its owner's hand, and it's a 1/1 elemental for 1.
The stats are terrible for the cost.
Absolutely awful.
You have to banish it to get the effect off on it, which is, I mean, it's a decent effect. Getting a 2-drop back to hand for 1 will isn't exactly terrible. I mean, there's a lot of cards that kill 2-drops for 1 will, which puts this card in kind of a bad spot. And then the inheritance is just awful.
Yep, exactly. It doesn't really advance your game state at all. You're taking the negative to fill your grave with elementals, sure, but at the same time, it's not really helping you much. So the card's just low impact, bad stats, 1 star.
Yeah, you need to be able to like get tempo out of bouncing something to the hand. That's like the whole point of it. Unfortunately, 1 will for a 1-drop is atrocious.
Yep. Anyway,
next is Drifting Little Moon. And that is a 1 will 5/5. It's a treasury, which is cool. And it's a moon. Didn't even see that. Card can't attack. This card deals 400 damage to target restive resonator by tapping it, and if you rest 4 Drifting Little Moon you control, destroy target resonator.
Yeah, Drifting Little Moon was a really, really weird card. I initially wanted to put it at the 2 or 3 star category because, again, it's really, really good on turn 1 because it discourages decks from getting aggressive on you because it just taps to hit things for 400, which is a significant amount. But as the game scales on, you're not going to be, first of all, sticking that many of these, and the 400 just slowly but surely gets less and less powerful as the game goes on.
The one thing that I actually really like about this card, it's almost like a 1 will Artemis the God's Bow that works forever.
Yep, exactly. That was kind of what I was thinking of too. Artemis the God's Bow was such a good anti-aggro card, and having sort of a similar aspect in New Frontiers is really cool.
And then with Actually, I think we might have missed the mark on this card.
There's a
because
chance. It's unassuming. That's the big thing.
a 1-will 5/5 is kind of hard to get off the board now with True Blade gone, and then this card combos perfectly with Bear Magic.
Right. Ooh, yes. That's actually pretty cool. Please note that a lot of these ratings hadn't really changed between the ban list. So
Yeah,
I think
so
this one might be kind of a miss.
yeah, I think this card might actually go up to like a 3-star rating, but we're not going to add it in the video. But I think we have a good reason why people would want to play this card.
Yep. It's either a 2 or 3 star at this point. Disregard this rating. This one's a kind of a sleeper after the changes.
Yeah, you could wind up seeing this card. I don't think it makes blue any better, but it's not terrible.
Yep, not terrible, so not 1 star. Alright. Going past that, we have a card that is just... it's bad, so that's good. Lightning Speed Crash. It's a 3-will Aura Chant with Quick Cast, which is very strange. This card deals 800 damage to target rested J Resonators, and if the weather is Thunderstorm, it deals 1200 instead.
Let's go. 1 hit, 1 kill.
Good old Widowmaker. I mean Shayla.
Yeah. Alright, so let's go into the actual things about this card. 3-will for 800 damage is terrible.
Yep.
So if you're going to use it for it being an aura, that is not a good idea. You're paying way too much for that ability. If you're going to use in Shayla for 1200 damage, that's where it starts to like being the tipping point range, but I think Shayla has so much good removal, and especially in that 3-drop zone, that's kind of like a sweet spot for her with Mega Thunderfish, Lightning Fowl.
Yep. Another big thing that makes this card a little worse is that, again, it's quick cast, so you're encouraged to use this reactively on your opponent's turn. Shayla only is going to be really producing the Thunderstorms on her flip side on your opponent's turn, so this card almost never goes off for that 1200 damage when it's needed.
Yeah, the card just kind of like doesn't fit with itself. You got a point there.
Yep. So with that being said, Lightning Speed Crash is definitely a very underpowered card. Not even something you're going to want to see in Shayla. So 1 star.
1 star. I think you could have seen this card at 2-will, and it probably wouldn't see play anyway.
That's sad. Alright, on to the next. We've got Lightning Waterfowl. Definitely one of the interesting cards we saw come out of this set for Thunderstorm.
Yep, it's 3 water, so let's see you play that water-based Shaylas, and it's an 8/8. Flying, this card gains swiftness and barrier as long as the weather is Thunderstorm. And I saw this card and I was like, this is really cool, and then I realized that it's in competition for the only other good aggro card in the Shayla deck.
Sort of.
Just Mega Thunderfish. Well, I guess there's Raijin.
Yeah, I count Raijin.
Raiju's also a 3-drop.
Yeah, technically, but he should be a 1-drop, so whatever. But Lightning Waterfall has a couple of things over Mega Thunderfish. Obviously, Mega Thunderfish has more stats to go off of the effect that it gets when it dies and the effect that it gets when it dies while it's raining. But the thing is, you have to choose between Thunderstorm and Rain. You can't really, you have to do a lot of backwards thinking in order to get to both effects in their fullest. Lightning Waterfowl just comes right out of the bat, really good in Thunderstorm, and has Swiftness with Barrier and Flying, 3 really, really relevant keywords for an aggressive tempo resonator. So I think this thing definitely sees some play in a more tempo variant of Shayla.
Yeah, the thing is, though, you're going to max out on Mega Thunderfish before you start maxing out on Lightning Waterfowl. And
I'm not too sure about that. I think they're in really good contention with each other. I think Waterfowl has a couple of things over Mega Thunderfish.
Are you sure? It's really hard to take a 8/8, even if it has Barrier and Flying, because how many things are actually going to matter in that instant when you're swinging on that first turn, and then you have to keep giving it Thunderstorm to keep having it have Barrier. And
Right.
it won't even have Barrier on your opponent's turn because the Thunderstorm's going to go away.
Yep, that's all very true, but I'm kind of I'm a little biased towards it just because I've played against Lightning Cape style Shayla decks, and I think that this thing pairs really well with it compared to Mega Thunderfish. But
Yep.
again, it's both of them definitely have slots. If by some way you can fit any number of both of them into the deck, Godspeed. But
Yep. And hopefully, I don't know. My biggest problem with the deck is that I couldn't figure out how to get Shayla to actually kill people.
Right.
Like, it seems just decks just stabilize way too quick against her, and that's why I kind of steered away from Thunderstorm aggro. But maybe this can help it. That's why I had it at like a 2-star, because I do see the power of the card. It's not great though.
Yeah, it's not.
Like,
it's not the best, but it's 800 flying. It's pretty much almost guaranteed 800 damage, and having Shayla's ability to just rest things at any time and destroy a relevant blocker. That's all pretty good. I just wish
this thing was a 2-drop, and then you would have curved down to the deck and made everything so nice and clean for the deck.
Yeah, there really isn't a good 2-drop for the deck right now.
Yep. Or a 1-drop, because water struggles with that, but maybe you're playing Drifting Little Moon.
Yeah, maybe. So, 2 stars on the Waterfowl.
2 stars. Next up is Magic Soldier of Time. That's a 2-drop for blue. There we go. Anyway, it's 7/7. Yeah, don't play in Shayla. 7/7, Resonator Golem, mobilize, Time Will. Whenever this card attacks or blocks, draw a card, then discard a card. So there's a lot of good things going for this. This is the only golem that we get that has a mobilize that uses a Time Will, so it's very specific for the Time Spinning, which is mobilize text.
But you can still use it in Pandora, because she just says mobilize the golem. You don't have to worry about the Time Will with her. Exactly. But that means you're also playing Pandora, so that's a crutch anyway. Anyway, continuing on.
Right, so this is one of the only golems that's actually like good stat to will ratio. It's not a lot better, but it's still a 7/7 for 2 is above average. You're normally expecting like what, a 6/6, 5/7.
Yeah, like a 6/6-ish is probably right.
Yeah. So you're getting 14 stats as opposed to your normal 12, which is good. That's great. And then on top of that, it has an effect where whenever it attacks or blocks, you draw a card, then discard a card, which is cycling. You can do a lot of shenanigans with it. It's a decent defensive and offensive card.
Yep, so that versatility is really good. The Time Spinning Witch has a couple of Grave Synergy cards, which is really nice. And having something to kind of work with it in both the offensive and defensive aspect means that this thing definitely has a spot in that deck. So,
and also helps Time Spinning Witch curve out anyway, and on top of that helps her cycle, which is something that blue has been desperately trying to do to beat the cycle color.
Yep. So, with all that said, Magic Soldier is pretty solid. That's a 3-star card, and I think it definitely works its way into a tempo-oriented Time Spinning Witch deck.
Or if you're going to play Pandora, that's probably the best card in your deck.
Yep, you're right. Exactly.
So 3 stars.
Yep. Moving on to go to Meditation. It's 4-will Quick Cast Chant, Rest All Resonators.
Yep, this is a really weak card. That's the first thing that came to mind.
Yep, because I immediately as I see this card, I think of Lethargy and I think of Rachel's Smile, and both of those cards outclass this card by a mile. Even Shayla's God's Art outclasses this card.
Well, that's a God's Art. That's once per game. So having a card that does it is pretty good. So Rachel's Smile is just 100 times better. Yep. For 1 more will, you rest all their stones too.
You rest everything, and only on their side.
Yep. This rests your own things, and that's really bad. So the most utility you get out of this is like what? Before untap, you cast Meditation, force everything to rest, then you untap, and then you swing for game. Like,
no, you gotta think big picture. You're playing Lumia. You rest your own stuff. You can't do that with Rachel's Smile.
And we just got Aura of Hope.
Yeah.
Which is a 1-will rest target thing.
Yep. I'm gonna just make the call 1 star on this, without a doubt.
Drop it to 0 stars if I could.
Yep. At least the artwork's nice.
Yep. It's Shayla looking at fish. Nice.
Yeah, and just it's Shayla. Tasty. Next.
Praying Mermaid, 3-drop, 8/8. At the beginning of your main phase, the weather is thunderstorm until end of turn. So we get a resonator that has like the lightning cave effect for Shayla.
Pretty much. Fun fact, I think that if this card was like a decently statted 1-drop, it might have seen play. Maybe?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, but the fact that it's a 3-star, 3 cost, 8/8, Doesn't have any immediate board impact. It's at the beginning of your main phase, so this card on turn 3 does nothing. And it's competing with that 3-drop
At
slot.
least it's a blocker, so it's a little bit better than Adam's Say card on the turn you play it.
Yeah, it's a little better, but at the same time, it's like... It's also competing for the slots for all of your aggressive Thunderstorm-based Resonators.
Right. If they came out
Waterfowl
before
and Mecha Thunderfish are here. This card does not slot in against those two.
Again, if this could have been a 2-drop as well. If you were able to play it before your Thunderfish turn, you wind up saving up your lightning counters a bit earlier in Shayla, and then you can go off with your Judgment faster. It just speeds up the deck as a whole. Putting it as a 3-drop is just like, why is everything a 3-drop?
Yep, there's no... The only 2-drop that even sees play in Shayla is Silent Mermaid, and that's only for the more control-oriented versions too.
And Lightning Cave.
And Lightning Cave's a 1-drop, so...
Oh, right. I bet. But you usually play that turn 2 Lightning Cave, and then you play the Raiju.
Yep. But either way, Praying Mermaid just poorly costed for what it's supposed to do. 1 star.
1 star. Next up is a card that I actually really like, which is Roar of the Soul.
Yeah.
1 water, chant, put up to 2 target soul resonators from your graveyard into your hand. Basically, when I read this card, I was like, oh cool, we can replace Spiderweb or have an additional Spider's Web in IU.
Yep, and my first thought was, wow, 1,000 more damage.
Yep. 1,000 damage for 1 water.
Pretty good.
Yeah. So the reason why we put this at 3 stars is A, it's really good in IU. B, if you are actually running a defensive deck that just runs souls as an engine, because you could do that because Misty Dragon Spirit is a good card. Roar of the Soul can draw you back to multiple copies of Misty Dragon Spirit, and that's actually really good for a water control mid-rangey deck.
Yep, if by some reason your opponent is able to final battle 2 of your Misty Dragon Spirits, you're like, oh geez, there go my win conditions. Roar 'em back, play him. Your opponent's like, nice, 1800 life, lost.
And then they final battle you again. No, I'm kidding.
I'm at 400.
Yeah, but the difficulty of that is to remove Misty Dragon Spirit and then being able to roar the soul back if something bad happens, like
it's discarded or something.
Yeah, that would be it, because if it got Lorite, it would be banished, and that's not good. So yeah, great card. Could have almost made it up into the 4-star category, but we're gonna stick it at 3-star just because its main use is in a Highlander deck.
Yep, exactly. And I've seen it's kind of like a tier 2 deck, tier 2-ish, I'd say.
I'm pushing her up in my mind because her ability, because with Resuscitating Will and Roar of the Soul, she has a lot of damage options. She can kill.
So maybe like a
easily.
1.5-ish.
She might be up there. I'd say be on the lookout for IU, especially with Roar of the Soul being in that extra 1,000 damage.
Yep. All right. Next up, we have Spirit of Time.
This is a 5-drop.
Yeah, it's a 5-drop 8/12. So shares the stats with the Time Spinning Witch, which is interesting. The second form.
And then it has basically no effect. Use 1 will to produce time, and it just says you have to use it as if you were Time Spinning Witch, basically.
Yep, it doesn't even produce its own will. You have to pay will to produce will. It's really weird.
This card is actually just atrocious.
Yeah, this card is probably one of the worst cards we've ever seen built for an archetype. Like even if it gave you just produce that will by paying 0, still not that good.
Well, that would be broken. It's only a once per turn too. That's even worse. Jesus.
Yeah.
And so forceofwill.co, if you're wondering why water is your worst color, this is cards like this is why.
Yeah, we'll just put this on like a bulletin board in their office and be like, hey guys, do not do this.
Yeah, because we get like 3 or 4 of these types of cards like per set, where it's like these cards are not well statted, these cards do not have good abilities on them, and then they just keep printing them. But so keep this on your radar. Force of Will, this is what you shouldn't be doing to water. Give us more cards like Cheshire Cat and Adam Brawley.
Put this in green. Just put it in green.
Yeah, give this card to green. That would have been great.
All right.
Next up is actually a good card for blue.
Yeah, Distortion of Time. This card's awesome.
One, the art's amazing. It reminds me of who the hell am I thinking of? Bayonetta.
It does, yeah. That's actually fantastic, yeah.
And she's doing witch time. So it's a 1-will chant. Look at the top card of your deck. You may put it on the bottom of your deck, draw a card. So the first part of this card is basically a small approaching the truth, which is like comical to me. They couldn't even make a card as good as approaching the truth for blue.
Hey, but Approaching the Truth didn't have that second effect. It just got to start in everybody's hand of 10 cards.
But the real reason why you're playing this card is because of the second effect, which is the God's Art Chrono Break, which is 1 water, 1 time, 1 colorless. Remove this card in your graveyard from the game. Your opponent skips their next recovery phase. Play this ability only during your turn. So, woof. That is a fantastic God's Art.
Yep, skipping the recovery phase on a turn where they're just like sinking all their mana in, trying to set up for the next turn play. You're just like, alright, well, you're shut off for the turn, have fun with it.
Yep, and also we're under the impression that Time Spinning Witch is going to do a lot of manipulation with stones, getting them frozen or otherwise with cards like Mosasaurus.
Yep,
so,
because she pays for awakenings, you can dinosaur surfacing them out at a faster speed, which is amazing.
Yep, that gives Time Spinning Witch a big niche, but we'll talk about that more when we're actually looking at the Time Spinning Witch, which I think is next. Distortion of Time on its own, though, is really, really good just because it is a cycle in itself and a +1. Well, not +1, it's just a neutral, but anyway, you get to cycle through your deck, and then this whole skip mechanic, you can, if you're a judgmented Time Spinning Witch, it's only 1 will, and 1 will basically skip your opponent's turn is fantastic.
Yep. Another decent thing to think about once rotation occurs and we see decks trying to play more monocolors because we're not sure if we're going to see the dual stones again. Any water decks playing the Time Stone, which we'll be talking about tomorrow, we'll be able to use the God's Art. Probably not to the same effect, obviously, but possibly something similar.
Yep, and having every single water deck have the opportunity to chrono break you is actually something that could make blue powerful. So be on the lookout for Distortion of Time.
Yep, so 4 stars for that. Definitely a good card. Best blue card in the set.
Yep, I was about to say that. Next up is probably the second best blue card in the set, which is the Dragonlords Breath.
Yeah, this card's really strong.
It is a 1-will quick cast. Return target Resonator with total cost 3 or less to its owner's hand. If you awakening for 2 times, you put target Resonator on the bottom of its owner's deck, in addition to the one that you threw back to hand, or the awakening for 1 time will is draw a card. So first thing I see is that draw a card, and I'm like, yum, this card is a cantrip, 1 will, bounce something.
And the Time Spinning Witch.
Yeah. If you're not playing Time Spinning Witch and you're just siding Time Stones in your stone deck as a water deck, you're probably going to enjoy... You're going to sometimes draw the card, and that's pretty good too.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other awakening, normally you're going to see that when you finally do Judgment, but the ability to just put something back in the hand and then something else in the bottom of the deck, it's just a 2 for 1 for 1 will at quick cast speed. That's a lot of value going into that thing.
Either awakening makes the card a +1.
Right, yeah.
So the card is just insane value. And if you're playing Time Spinning Witch, the card is insane value.
Yep,
if
exactly.
You are able to, you didn't use your time will per turn. So be on the lookout for Dragonlords Breath, 3 stars. We were thinking about pushing this up to 4 stars, but we don't think it's the most dramatic card in the Time Spinning Witch's arsenal.
Yep, exactly. We already saw that one.
Yep. And man, there's a lot of the cards for blue.
Yeah. So the next one we have is the End of Possession. 3 will chant with quick cast. Target your Resonator loses all abilities and becomes a 0/100 until end of turn. But if it's IU, it retains all abilities, it becomes a 2000 instead. This card is straight up weird.
Yeah, I would have really liked to see this card cost less. Then it would have been really good in both IU as an offensive and defensive tool, which I think is what they were going for. But at 3-will, it's just way too expensive.
Exactly. IU, because of the inconsistency of the deck, really wants to just be running like 1 and 2 drops and then the souls. And this card really doesn't.
And then like kill cards.
Yeah, exactly. And this card just does not fit into that current archetype. If somebody wants to build a control IU, this could be good, but I do not see that becoming a deck.
Unfortunately, the only good part about End of Possession is that it's target J Resonator for the 0/1, which makes it a little bit better than Bear Magic, but doesn't warrant it being 2-will without Remnant.
Right.
And then basically the other side of it is IU gains 1,000, which is pretty bad considering that the souls are worth, what, half a will if you're considering Roar of the Soul.
Right.
So when you put it that way, the card is just way too much will for what it is, and that's why we put it at 1 star.
Yep. And also a fun thing is that if you're trying to set up a kill and you draw this thing later in the turn where you're trying to get the kill, and if you've discarded some souls and you play the End of Possession on the IU, the souls are basically just gone.
Yep.
So
we could see this card as a tech option against IU if they drop all their souls to try and kill you and you just end up possession them back to a 2000.
Yes, 3-will stop IU from killing you once.
Or you can do 1-will stop IU from killing you once with Aura of Hope, or Amaterasu's Foresight for 2-will, or I'm not going to go on.
Yep.
Anyway, 1 star.
Yep. On to the last card before the Witch, I think.
I hope so. So the Last Thunder, we got a 3-will chant for Shayla. More 3-will things for the Shayla deck.
Yep, but this one's actually pretty decent.
Yep, this card has some utility. Anyway, this card gains Quick Cast as long as it's in your hand and the weather is Thunderstorm. Search your deck, hand, and or graveyard for 3 cards named The Last Thunder and remove them from the game. If you do, destroy all non-Magic Stone, non-J-Ruler entities. If you search your deck, shuffle it.
So that's a lot of... This card is probably one of the strangest designed cards we've seen in the game, I'd say.
Yeah, it's definitely a really unique design. I've never seen a card like this before.
Yep. The fact that you can remove them from deck, hand, or graveyard is great because as long as one of them hasn't gotten removed by some weird chance, you get to just board clear for 3-will, which is fantastic.
Man, I'm gonna hate the day when my Last Thunder in hand gets Unending Hatreded.
Yes. The plan.
If that happens, you're having the worst day of your life.
Yeah, I think that might be the worst thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
Anyway, but the other problem with this, the big problems I see with this card is that in order to activate it, you have to banish 3 other copies of it, no matter where they are, including if they're in your hand. And once the Last Thunder becomes discard another card to blow up the board, it becomes terrible.
Yeah. But if they're all in your deck, it's a 3-will chant that blows up the board and thins you out by 3.
Oh, you know what the play is? You use a green card that we're going to see later. You dump the other 3 Last Thunders into your graveyard.
So you never draw them. Yes.
Yes, and then you could banish them out. Fantastic. So yeah, this card is absolutely, I wouldn't say absolutely terrible. It is blow up the board. Unfortunately, it isn't one-sided, which it should have been.
For that cost, yeah. Because of that, unfortunately, it does have to make its way into a control Shayla deck, which I don't think we'll be seeing. But at the same time, it's also just for Resonator and Addition removal, and then Shayla's flip side lets you God's Art destroy J-Ruler, so you have a lot of options for that at least.
Yeah, that's pretty expensive, but it pushes for more controlling Shayla, and I guess if you fall behind, this is a decent card. I just don't see it fitting into Shayla at 2 stars.
Yep, exactly. So, moving on. There it is. Okay.
We reached it, finally.
After all the...
So here's the Time Spinning Witch / the Time Spinning Witch / Unbound Princess of Time Kaguya. If you're going to write out full card names on your deck list, make sure to do this one because you're going to hate yourself afterwards.
Almost as much as you hate writing out an IU deck list.
Yep. So we're going to start with the ruler. I'll do the ruler side, Mike can do J-Ruler side, and then I'll do Colossal Ruler.
Sounds good to me.
Alright, so Time Spinning Witch ruler side is Judgment for 2-time, Energized blue, and for 0 you can produce Time Will that can only be used on activate abilities, Mobilize, or Awakenings. You can only do it once per turn.
Alright, and then you go to the second side, the Time Spinning Witch, again. It's another Witch J-Ruler with 800 attack and 1200 defense. Judgment's for 10, but you can only do that if you have 10 or more magic stones. Can't cheat it out. She comes with Stock Barrier and Flying, which is great. And for 0, she produces 2 Time Will. Same things as the first side apply. And then for 0, her God's Art is that until the end of the game, you may play all other God's Art abilities you played this game an additional time. But this does not affect God's Art abilities that are played after this effect for the first time.
So we're gonna hold off on going to Unbound Princess of Time for a little bit, so we can talk about because that part's kind of like a separate entity in itself.
Yeah.
So the first part of Time Spinning Witch, just being able to produce will on your ruler side, is very good. There are some decent awakenings in the game. Dinosaur Surfacing is the first one to come to mind. New Frontiers. There's a bunch of big ones in Wanderer. There's probably too many to talk about for Wanderer.
I think my favorite one was the Moon Incarnation one, though.
Yes, that's a really fun one. Especially since you have Hook and stuff, so really fits her playstyle there. And then on the J-Ruler side, you get 2 Time Will, which is sick, because that doubles up on your power.
1 times 2 is 2. Thanks, Joe.
Yep. but going from 1 will to 2 will is definitely really good, and it doesn't like take anything away from the Time Spinning Witch. She just gets better judgmenting, which I always liked about ruler to J-Ruler interactions. It's kind of where like Sherry missed the mark, but
Yeah.
Rest in peace. She also has Barrier and Flying, which are really good keywords to have on a J-Ruler. She's really hard to kill. And you could just sit her up as a J-Ruler for a pretty long time without having to worry about her dying. Besides maybe, what is it, Final Battle? Yeah.
Yep, Final Battle or something with precision, I guess.
Yeah.
But Keurig.
So honestly, those two sides on her own are strong enough to make Time Spinning Witch just like a usable ruler. And then when we flip over to Unbound Princess of Time of Kaguya, you restart the game, which is ridiculous. That's like Fiber Jar. It comes out really late though, so that's good. You don't have to worry about, turn 1, someone Unbound Princess of Time, and just start the game again. That'd be stupid.
Yep.
That's the comparison draw to Fiber Jar. And then at the beginning of your main phase, choose 1, produce light, fire. It just produce a color, will, or draw a card. Once you are Unbound Princess of Time Kaguya, I think you should win the game.
If you're in the position where you actually can Judgment into Kaguya, I think you just automatically win the game anyway, but...
that's not entirely true. Just because Time Spinning Witch is hard to kill, there are situations where I could see you being on like last legs, and your only option to squeeze out a win in that game is to try and get to 10 stones so you can go into Unbound Princess.
True, because we have seen Fog decks work in the past. Time Spinning Witch could be our new Fog.
I wouldn't suggest playing Fog with her, because then once you turn into Unbound Princess of Time Kaguya, you will become the Unbound Princess of Time, because that's the only place you'll be in a tournament. In time.
I see. I get it.
So once you go into, there's like no real good way, because if you're playing a Fog deck, you're not going to be able to win in time. So if you flip over to reset the game and do that, you're not going to, it just doesn't work. Just don't do it.
Yeah. The first sides are just kind of better.
You might troll someone, but all you're going to do is just force draws. There's no way to like win in time with Kaguya.
Yep, so
unless you're really going for a draw, you should be probably playing a tempo-oriented variant, or else it's just draw loss as your only ways to win, as your only way to play, I guess. That's all I can really say about Kaguya.
Yeah.
So otherwise, I think Time Spinning Witch is very good.
Yep, exactly. Just a lot of value on the first two sides, and then worst case scenario, you have the big red button.
Yep.
So 3 stars.
3 stars. We were thinking about originally had this at a 4-star, but then we reread the God's Art. Time Reverberation does not automatically cast them again, which is what I initially thought, and that would have been really good, but unfortunately, nope.
Yep, and I believe because you have to play the God's Arts again, you actually have to have the cost of the God's Art available to you.
Yeah, so you have to be able to play it. So if like you want a Distortion of Time again, that means you have to have
Distortion of Time in the Grave. Yeah.
Yeah, one that you've already played and then God's Arted, and then you have, which is a little much, but that definitely balances her and doesn't make her just a freeze minion. Like, you know what I mean. Anyway, let's go on to the next thing.
Yep, next up we have the Witch's Minion, which is a 2-wheel 6/6. It's a tempo statted resonator. It's a Cthulhu.
Yep. Of course.
Why wouldn't it be? And going with the theme we've been seeing in Winds of the Omnibus Moon, it's got at the beginning of your main phase effect to produce Time Will, but you only spend it on Mobilize or Awakenings or Activate abilities. Same thing as the Time Spinning Witch.
Unfortunately, I was going to think that this card was really good, but they put that line of text that says spend this will only to play Activate abilities or Mobilize costs or Awakenings. Also, it's a Awakening cost of chance.
Oh.
It's not just Awakening. Oh, wait. Oh, no. I just realized Time Spinning Witch does Awakening cost of chance.
Oh, okay.
Well, that cuts down one things. Oh, well. Well, anyway, the card would have been better if it just produced Time Will. Oh, well.
Yeah. But either way, the Witch's Minion doesn't do anything on summon, does what the J-Ruler does, but just kind of slower.
Yep.
So, honestly, don't see it working out really well. 1 star.
1 star. Next up is Time-Bound Spirit. It's a 1-will, 2/2, ghost. When this card is put into a graveyard from the field, draw a card. So basically, it's Alice's Little Scout for 1. Alice's Little Scout, but as a ghost instead of a soldier. So that's already a decent card, because Scouts saw some play.
Yep.
Some specific text. And then it also has the text, whenever you play God's Art, you may put this card from your graveyard into the field. So it's an upside to Alice's Little Scout, because Scout only said if it hits the grave, draw a card. So, wow, good for you, Time-Bound Spirit.
Yep, and aside from the soldier synergy with like the Urgalia, Time-Bound Spirit is definitely just like a generally better version, especially because you're not limited to just your J-Ruler's God's Art. Even if you're using like God's Arts of Resonators, brings it right back, kill it, draw a card, play another God's Art, bring it back. So, good recurring draw engine. Could definitely see some good play in not only the Time Spinning Witch, but anything that's running a deck with a God's Art and potentially like the Alice with the God's Art, maybe even the Welser.
Also, the big thing that you can get out of this is that it's not even just one Time-Bound Spirit per God Art. You can, if you have 4 in your grave, you will pull out all 4 of them, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a really cool little card. Has really interesting applications, so definitely not going to put it at 1 star. 2 star for sure for now. If somebody finds some way to make this thing gross, that'd be hilarious. But for now, I think it's just a decent card.
Yeah, it's only a 1-drop, and it's not like exceedingly good 1-drop. Unfortunately, Lowly Spirit Bug is most of the time a better 1-mana, 1-will draw card, because it's a enter effect instead of a when it's put into a graveyard effect. So there's a lot more utility with that.
Yep, exactly. So sticking with that 2-star rating.
Exactly.
Going on to our next card, we have Time Dilation, which I think is actually a really, really fantastically designed card.
Yep, I think it's a beautifully designed card, and it has great art, and let's talk about it.
Yeah, so it's a 2-will chant, 2 blue, of course, draw 2 cards. We've seen that before in the card 4C, which was the exact same thing there, but 4C wasn't a time-spinning witch card, so it didn't have the 2 awakenings. This awakening is that you can pay 1 time will to rest target J Resonator, and you can pay 2 time will to recover target J Resonator. Both of those for the time spinning witch, especially seeing her game plan and what she's trying to do, are actually really fantastic.
Yep, both of those things are just nice. It's automatically a +1 on its own. 2 will, draw 2 cards is pretty good. What the New Frontiers comparison, I guess, is Blood Spray.
Yeah, I guess Blood Spray is a pretty apt comparison, but again, that's sort of out of color comparatively, but at the same time.
Yeah, but again, 2 will, draw 2 cards. Blood Spray requires you to lose life, 300 life, I believe.
Yep, which also has an extra awakening with mystery counters on it, I believe.
Yep, but this is free, basically, in Time Spending Witch, or if you're using Time Will to get a little bit of extra bonus in the late game, which is good card design.
Yep. Something really important about Time Dilation's costs and the ability to stack to that cost. You're incentivized to use the first one on your ruler side, of course, to be a little more defensive as you're getting ready for your judgment. But once your judgment did, you're going to be obviously tapping for stones, trying to dig in to get to your 10th stone. Having basically a free way to recover your Time Spinning Witch J Ruler once it's tapped for stone is a really good way to keep it protected. So not only is there built-in damage, protection, defense, and draw into this card,
everything just kind of like works out for this card. The only problem that I have with this card is that if you eventually do go into Unbound Princess of Time Kaguya, it stops being as relevant.
Yeah, agreed. But once you do that, you're just kind of playing it as tempo. I wouldn't say maxing out on this at all, but at the same time, it's still a decent card. Also, I just realized that clock is off. The 10 shouldn't be on that side. It should be on 1 up, I think.
I mean, the clock is just turned.
Yeah.
And it's also mirrored.
Yeah. Can't make heads or tails of it. Anyway,
yeah,
2 stars. Good card.
Yeah, the 6 is on the bottom, and then the 10 is on the right, so
right.
It's mirrored.
We should stop thinking about it too much.
Unyielding Dragonlord Ragnarok.
Yeah, next.
Big Durgans.
Big Durgan.
We got a 6 will, 3 water required for a 15/15.
With flying.
It's got flying. Yep. And when this card enters the field, it was played from your hand. Reveal cards from the top of your deck until you choose to stop, or until you reveal 2 cards that share a name. Then put all revealed cards into your hand. And its second effect is discard 7 cards, destroy target non-magic stone entity.
This is probably the most all-or-nothing card I've ever seen printed in Force of Will.
Which is really cool. I'm glad it exists. The only thing I don't like about this card is that you have to play it from your hand.
Yep, if it was Reanimator style, this thing would be fantastic for probably Wanderer, I think, is where this would see a lot of play.
Yeah, there are ways to cheat it out. There is a way from the set to help cheat it out, but it's not in color, and it's kind of awkward to do so.
Yep, agreed.
The card doesn't win the game, but this card's pretty cool. Unfortunately, IU doesn't really care about
6 drops.
Yeah. So you're not going to really see IU decide to just draw out our whole deck for free.
I was still kind of weirded out that this thing wasn't a soul resonator, because it just screams IU.
But if it was a soul, you would never see the thing get played either. You would just see it get discarded for IU buffs.
Yep.
But at least it would then have a use.
Something really cool about this card, though, is that it kind of fits multiple archetypes within Rhea Cluster itself, actually. Obviously, it supports IU for being really good with one-ofs. It supports, Dragon Flying Synergy. It supports the card we'll see later in the next video. And because of the discard effect, it sort of is a soft support for Null.
Kinda?
Yeah, it's weird. It's really weird, and I don't think it's exactly what they need, because you could choose to stop once you hit 7 cards, or you could just get greedy and try to stop at 14, destroy 2 things, discard your hand.
The thing is, you're destroying your deck to destroy things. It's such a weird and cool card. I love the design. Just very hard to play.
Yeah, exactly. I have no idea where this card will fit. if it'll fit anywhere, if there'll be like a ramp deck that wants to go into it, but the ramp decks should be playing multiple Sacred Elves and Melfies, and it probably doesn't want to discard those. It's really, really weird, and it's probably one of the most interestingly designed cards we've seen from at least this video.
And also with New Frontiers, we still have things that synergized with discarding because of Charlotte's Protector.
Right, yeah. Because, well, we also have Charlotte herself, who, after you discard your hand to kill something at instant speed, you then flip over the Charlotte, draw back your hand, and just go off from there.
And then you deck out.
Right, and then you deck out.
Alright, anyway, it's a cool card, but we don't see it seeing much play, so 2 stars.
Right. Design-wise, it's good.
Yes.
Next up is a mutually agreed bad card. We're Remnant of the Null Moon.
That is a 4-drop 10/10. We're already in a bad start. Anyway, when this card enters the field, each player draws a card. Nice. You start out with a -1.
This card wouldn't see play even if you drew a card.
Yep, if it was 4-will 10/10, draw a card, it would still be bad.
Yep, 1 star.
1 star. Well, I don't know what they're thinking besides that.
Yep, so won't talk about too much. Next up is Wings of Ragnarok. This card, I was on the border of 1 and 2 stars. Joe convinced me to 1 star pretty quickly, but it's a 3-will 7/8 dragon that has, first of all, I don't know how only the wings themselves are dragons, but whatever. But for time will, it gains +2/+2 and flying until end of turn. I was actually really back and forth on this card just because in the Time Spinning Witch, having a 9/10 flyer at pretty much any time is pretty sick. The only unfortunate thing is that it's very tempo oriented, it's very damage oriented, and the Time Spinning Witch has been leaning just more and more into like a control mid-range style. I don't think this makes the cut.
9/8 on 3-will is like, that doesn't have any more effects. It's just hard to take.
Yeah, I mean,
like even if you're yes 9/10, but still even if you have the Time Spinning Witch on her J ruler side, so you just do time will, so it becomes what, an 11/12 with flying, with double flying. Don't forget that.
Double flying, super flying.
It's still not crazy good, and I just never see a vanilla 3-drop, something that, you know, doesn't have any like built-in effects, enter ability, stuff like that to help advance your game state the turn you play, as ever being good and constructed.
Exactly. Like it can become a lot of stats if you try hard enough for it, but at the same time it's just like very niche, very situational, and again, as you mentioned, doesn't have any real presence when it comes out. So
yeah. And also it has the worst Resonator type in Wanderer and New Frontiers right now, which is Dragon.
Because Heaven Sent New Dragon Palm is good.
Yep. So 1 star.
Yep. On to the next one. I believe this is the last blue card we have, is Witch's Lament.
Yep.
It's a 2-will chant that produces 2 time will, and you spend it only to do the witch yada yada yada. Turn your will into somewhat useless will.
Yeah, I don't know the direction of this. I think 1 blue on this card would have made it actually really cool, and like you would have seen some like interesting interactions with it, and people would be playing it and trying to make it work. But at
instead,
2 will
it's just
for
a
2 time,
garbage rewriting laws.
Yeah, I don't know what their intent was with this at 2 will.
Yep. So 1 star.
1 star.
And with that, that brings us to the end of the water cards.
Yep. So we had a decent scatter of water. Well, who am I kidding? Everything's tilted towards the 1 and 2 star rating. There is one more 3 star, then 1 star after we kind of went back and forth on Little Moon.
Yep, exactly. So you could take one of those 1 stars and put it between like the 2 and 3 stars, but still, that is a pretty low-end curve for water, unfortunately.
If you look at last video where we were talking about light is very much towards like a bell shape, and this, well, it's a little bit like, you know, shifted towards the bottom, which it should be, but still, most of the cards were better than, we're like averaging out, like a 3-star water is averaging out like 1.5, and that's disgustingly bad. It didn't have a card that we could consider 5 stars.
It's pretty rough, but at the same time, unfortunately, a lot of the support was going to Shayla, who's kind of already established, and the Time Spinning Witch, who just has really, really weird niche cards.
Yeah,
but some of those design choices are just...
Yeah, and the big thing is Time Spinning Witch also has the problem with distribution right now. So we have no idea what we're going to see about Time Spinning Witch, whether or not that card is actually going to be seen a lot, or if it's going to be seen very rarely because it's such a rare card.
Yep, exactly. So keep on the lookout for that. Check this graph out, and move right into Wind.
And for Wind, we start out with a big one. This I remember a lot of people saying that Force Will broke the game with this card again.
Yep, I was one of the people who was really, really adamant against this card for a time. Cecil T is a 4-will, 1000/1000 Resonator Elf. That's big. You pay green to deal 100 damage to target J Resonator. That's big. And you tap it to recover 2 target magic stones.
Yeah, my first view of this card, I was like, what did they do? Favor's broken. Oh no. And then I was kind of like, wait, this card doesn't like add to Favor, it just kind of like makes him reactive.
Yep. Cecil and Tia themselves, the card itself on its own is still a pretty good mid-range resonator for a lot of green decks, just having the ability to tap and recover stuff and use it reactively. But if not, it's still a fairly proactive card, which is nice because it's got the good body.
Right.
But in Favor, obviously, because you have the ability to tap your elves, recover stones, you can get this out as early as turn 2, and on turn 2 you're recovering the 2 stones you just used to put it into play, so it's pretty much netting you full advantage back.
Which is really sick.
Yep. Again, it might be a little bit of a pipe dream and you need a lot to go right to make it happen, but in like an elf ball kind of swarm deck, this card is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, the thing is, it's also competing against 2 other really good elves, which is Favor Rallying King, and what's the other one?
Well, there's Favor, there's Oberon, and then there's the other 2.
Yes, Oberon, and Commander of the Crowd if you want to play that too.
That's a 3 cost though, so I don't know if we count that.
Yeah, you could bring it out. It does. Oberon might be better because you get the 4 tokens, 3 tokens, 3 tokens versus the
3
2
bodies.
Tokens. Yeah, as opposed to the 2 bodies that Commander of the Crowd gives you, but Commander has the swinging ability, which is pretty good. They're all up there, and they're all trying to compete for that slot of what do I pull out of my deck with Favor and what is a better card. And I think the Rallying King still beats that out. The other deck you might see this in is Lumia.
Yeah.
And Imel.
Yep, both of them deal with recovered and rested resonators. Be able to flicker this, or just double tap it with Imel on your opponent's turn to recover 4 stones that you used to play it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Once you get Cecil and Tia on board, you basically, in Imel or Lumia, you basically are guaranteed all your stones back that you paid for it, and that's pretty good for a 10/10.
Yep, and then the ability to just sink extra will into 100 damage pings. This is basically just better Mikage. I wouldn't say better, but like...
Yeah, I mean, it's a green, so obviously it's better.
There you go. So, with all this being said, Cecil and Tia just have a lot stacked into them. We'll definitely be seeing a lot of them if Favor is as popular as we think that he's going to be, so easy 4 stars on the first one here.
We were on the fence about putting it to 5 stars, but we wind up toning it down because we don't think the card does enough on the turn you play it.
Yep. Again, fairly reactive.
Yep. Next up is our only other J ruler, or our only new ruler in this set that you can pull from a pack, which is Seal, Ancestor of the Priestess, and Phantom Wind Feetsing.
Yeah, so with Seal you get obviously the Elf Ruler, you Judgment for 1, and you Energize for 1, green. Both of those are amazing once we see the backside. But at the end of your turn, you can attach target aura in your graveyard to this card. So you're incentivized to use your auras in sort of a proactive way to try and get value out of her, but you can hold on to auras for the late game if you need them as well.
Yeah, basically the main idea is to get some auras in the grave before doing your judgment, because once you judgment into Phantom Wind Featsing, which is a 10/10 off of a 1-will judgment, which is pretty crazy, you get this huge enter effect, which says
You're good to read it all out?
I'll try to.
Alright.
Choose up to 1 for each aura attached to this card. So if you have 3 auras, you can choose up to 3 of these. This is the example. Put 4 +1/+1 counters on target resonator you control, or put 2 4/4 Wind Spirit Resonator tokens with flying into the field, or recover up to 3 target magic stones, or you gain 1000 life, or you draw 2 cards, or this card deals 800 damage to target J Resonator. If you had 3 auras attached to it, you gain Imperishable, and when this card is destroyed, remove all auras attached to it from the game. That is a lot of text.
That's a huge amount of text. Just looking at it from the get-go, Joe, what is your preferred... say you have to judgment for just 1 aura and you're trying to do the turn 2, 1000, what's the aura you choose?
It's definitely 2 4/4 Wind Spirit Resonators with flying.
Yeah, the fact that the game flying is insanely powerful.
So this card is multifaceted, and I really love it for that. Basically, if you have 1 aura attached, this card could be very aggressive. You can judgment for 1, and then you have a 10/10, and then your 2 4/4s with flying, and that's 18 worth of stats off of 1 will, which is fantastic. Or if you go for a more control-oriented way, your 1 will judgment that brings out a 10/10 can draw 2 cards and then recover 3 stones all at once, which is insane. So any way that you want to use this card is actually really good.
Yep, say you're playing like an aggressive matchup and you're like, alright, it's turn 3, I haven't judgmented yet. Well, let's say like turn 4. Haven't judgmented yet, I'm taking a lot of damage. You have 3 auras attached, you pay the judgment, flip over with the 3 auras, you gain the life, you draw the cards, and you... what was the last one I was thinking of?
Deal damage to target J Resonator to help clear up on the board.
That too, yep. The 800 damage in life as well, and then recovering the 3 stones after that is still just bonkers on turn 3.
Yep, any of those options are all really good. There's like no bad effect on this card, and I really like it for that. The only thing that made me not put it at 5 stars, and I hate to say it, is that whole first text, that whole enter effect is all 1 box. So guess who comes in? Our good old friend Lorite.
Lorite stops the whole thing.
Yep, so all your fun is gone. Keys' Call also cancels it, right?
Nope, Keys' Call only targets Resonators.
Yep, so there you go. Phantom Wind Featsing is like given the short stick because Lorite's really strong.
Yep. Can't believe that card didn't get hit.
Yeah. Be on the lookout for Phantom Wind Featsing. There's going to be some really cool builds utilizing it. I think it's the best ruler in the set.
Agreed.
Okay. So we're going to try to make builds with it. The deck building with this card is also really hard to do because there's just so many things that go into it. But you're going to see many different variants with that, and hopefully they'll all be really cool, interesting, balanced, and fun to play against.
Yep, so 4 stars on Phantom Wind Featsing. Definitely check it out and take a look for it when you're playing.
Hopefully you pull one.
Alright, next up, we hit a low note. Fairy of the Holy Tree. 3 will 7/8. Fairy. You gain barrier.
Congrats. You can't be thundered.
Yeah, you can't get thundered, but you can still get lightning struck. Oh no.
What does this protect against?
Majin Impact. That's to target opponent, I think.
Power Spike, I think, is target opponent. I don't know. There's really not a lot of things that target your face.
Yep.
So, with that said, why are you paying 3 will for 7/8? Fairy. 1 star.
Yep. Next.
5th Element. 1 will, chant, spirit magic, quick cast. Reveal any number of elementals from your hand. This card deals 300 damage to target J Resonator for each card revealed this way. Cool, I guess.
Yeah, Fifth Element is it's a card that people have been really back and forth about, especially depending on the relative strength of all the elementals. So far the ones I'm thinking of immediately are like White Leaf and Leaf Garb, which can be searched out with Leaf Paladin, but Leaf Paladin might be a little bit slow.
So Leaf Paladin's what 3055. Look at to it, but I don't think it's that great.
Yeah, we'll get to that one. But honestly, as if you even have like 2 elementals in your hand, this card is still really good tempo on turn 1.
Yep, it's pretty good. One will deal 6 is definitely in above power level. You do have to reveal your hand, which isn't that great. I know that there are decks out there that are willing to play cards that specifically just look at your opponent's hand, because that's pretty powerful in this game, considering how fast the games go. So you could consider that a detriment.
Yeah, definitely, especially with the 5-star Darkness card we're going to show next video.
Yep. And on top of that, you are playing elementals, and not many elementals are that good.
Right, exactly. The pool's very limited for those. But if you are playing a guild deck and you do have at least a decent number, maybe like 8 to 10 elementals or something, this card definitely sees a decent spot. Maybe it's like a 1 or 2 of.
It is a Spirit Magic, so it does get that utility of you could make it free in Gil.
Yep, and especially since we no longer have True Blade, this card kind of fits that niche now.
This is what True Blade should have been for Gil.
Yeah.
Anyway, next up is Herbivorous Beast Silomosaurus. I think I said that right.
I think so. It's a Littlefoot's mom.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
There we go.
It's a 6 will 0/15, but not really. This card gains +3 attack for each wind magic stone you control. So I guess if you didn't cheat it out, turn 6, 15. So not full stats. It's like Ultra Store.
Yeah, it's just
awkward.
It's
just
large.
Big stats. Yeah. Why you'd be wanting to play a big dinosaur? There's no effects. If you want a dinosaur that has no effects, you don't even play this one. You play the variant, but we'll get to that.
And if you want to play a good dinosaur, you play Mosasaurus instead. 1 star.
1 star. Next up is a weird card that looks like it came from like r/custom Hearthstone.
Yeah, it does look like a really, really custom card.
This is Lorite 7 Disciples of the 3 will 7/7. When this card enters the field or at the beginning of your main phase, this card gains +2, swiftness, flying, first strike, precision, drain, or parry until end. If you control right 7 luminaries Astrologian, it gains all those abilities instead.
So,
what kind of meme is this?
It's an extreme meme. The card itself is obviously really good on its own, just having the ability to gain swiftness immediately and then just gain extra stuff at the beginning of each main phase.
This is like how most of the cards in the set should have been, instead of just having the beginning of your main phase.
Yep, but they only give it to green, so oops.
Oops.
The one thing that I'm not sure about with this card is that it's weird. It incentivizes you to use Lorite proactively, which is so bizarre to me.
Kinda. It's more... Lorite 7 Disciples is like dumb good. It's a 3 will 9/9 with swiftness on the turn it comes down, so it's like an above average aggro 3-drop. And then if you cancel something with Lorite, it then becomes even better. Like, I don't know what they were going with this card. It's like literally a meme. It's like, hey, we got this really strong card called Lorite in green. Let's make a really strong card that combos with it and lists it as a card in the text.
Yeah, it feels like it should have been a joke. This is like if Forceful had an unhinged set, this card is probably the closest we've ever gotten to it.
Yeah. I just want to. I really want to hear the thought process behind this card.
I do too. And the funniest thing is, I don't know how much play it'll see.
I have absolutely no idea because a lot of decks are playing Lorite and a lot of decks are playing green. And if it's an aggro variant of green that's like mid-range, like could you imagine like someone just ramping up at you with low reds, and then they, after you get through like a couple low reds, they drop Lorite 7 Disciples and just continue to hit you in the face? It's like super out of color, but it works.
Yeah. It's still so weird to me.
Yeah. Forceful's gonna have to answer some questions. And also when I saw this card, I was like, great, that means they didn't ban Lorite. And lo and behold, they did not ban Lorite.
Yep.
Well, if Lorite gets banned, this card's still good, and that scares me. 4 stars.
Yep, exactly. So, can't give it the 5-star treatment just because we have no idea how much play it'll actually see for real, but it's a me. Next.
Yeah, the only reason I think of the 5 stars is that you have to control Lorite, and rough.
I mean, if you control Lore, it's a 5-star card. If you don't control Lore, it's a 4-star card. Whatever. Okay, next.
Exactly. Leaf Assassin. 1 green, 3/4. Good stats. Elemental. When this card enters the field, revealing a number of elementals from your hand, this card deals 200 damage to target J Resonator. For each card revealed as well. Okay? This is my preferred version of the card we just saw. Yeah, 5th element. You get the 3/4 immediately. It's an elemental that counts towards the effect already instead of it being a spirit magic. It's a good card.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the damage scaling is a little bit lower than we see on 5th element, and 5th element just has the spirit magic's energy.
Right.
But even outside of, like, big thing is that this card is actually usable outside of a guild deck, which is probably the way the reason that it's going to see a little bit more play. We've seen cards that synergize with multiple rulers, and this card being a really good support piece to it is really cool, actually.
This card is probably like the biggest incentivizer to run multiple elementals in a deck that isn't guild.
Yep, exactly.
And I think it does a good job of it. I kind of wanted to push for a 3-star after I did a little bit of experimenting with some decks earlier this week. But I think we can still stick with 2 stars. It's a high 2-star though.
Yep, it's like if there's a 2.5, it's probably around there.
Yeah. You probably will see Leaf Assassin having play in some type of gimmicky elemental-esque deck, but it could be any deck, and that's really cool. Yep. 2 stars.
Next up we have Leaf Dragon, which is a bad elemental.
Yeah. It also has Dragon as a tag, so it's even worse of a card. 4-will, 9/9, flying. Remove an elemental in your graveyard from the game. Put a +1/+1 counter on this card. This is just draft fodder. Don't even look at this card for constructed.
It's like bad Misty Dragon Spirit.
It's a lot of bad things, but overall it's just not a good card. Yep. Next up, Leaf Fairy. First up was the Dragon Spirit being the dragon being 1 star. Leaf Fairy, 2 stars. I'm tired. Please take over.
Okay. Alright, I'll take it over from you. 2-star. Jesus.
Neither of us can do this.
2 mana, 4/5, 1 green, 1 colorless. It's an elemental and a fairy, so pretty decent keywords there. Has flying as a keyword, and when it enters the board, you draw a card. So it's a cantrip flyer with good stats. We saw a long time ago Hanzo Hattori from Vingolf 1 was a blue 3/3 with flying and drew a card. That thing actually saw play, so of course green had to 1-up it.
Okay, that was in a really different format. That was back, like, people were playing Hanzo Hattori a lot after like Baja happened, because having a cheap flyer was really, really good.
Yep.
So, but anyway, Leaf Fairy is actually a decent card because cantripping a green card is good. You could actually see this card in Fox.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good cantrip with regard to that.
And it could push for Elemental Fox. Let's let's see that. I think that'd be sick.
Yep. And the last thing is that I've actually been experimenting with a few newer players, and one of them started building zero fairies, and I'm just like, green fairies have always been really, really good. This card can potentially slot into that build. It's just a good cantrip that lets you net some extra fairies. 4 or 5 flyers are never a bad thing, so who knows? Card's just decent tempo into mid-range.
Yeah, I'm all for this card. 2 stars. I don't think it's an insanely powerful card. It's decent for what it does, and it's got okay stats. 2 stars.
Yep. Moving on from there, the one we were talking about before, Leaf Paladin. 3 will, 5/5, elemental again. And when it enters the board, you can search your deck for a light, fire, water, and or darkness elemental. Reveal them and put them into your hand.
So the whole Ojama squad has come together, and this is their searcher.
Yep, this is basically just Oja magic on a 3 will, 5/5 body.
So basically, we get an idea from Force of Will code that their design philosophy of how the hand elemental deck would work is that you'd use this to draw 3 new cards, 4 new cards, draw 4
cards,
and then you'd have options to kill things. So that's good.
Yeah, is it gonna happen? This thing's really, really expensive. Can't get low rated, so I think it might just be a little bit too slow. But at the same time, if it does go off, it's massive amounts of hand advantage, no matter what.
Right. So there is some use for it. I think that there's going to be some experimentation with this card, but I don't think it's that great. 3
yeah,
will,
I think
5/5
the experimentation is fine. Searches for White Leaf, which is nice. That card's really, really good. Even if it's just like a 5/5 for 3 that searches out maybe like a light elemental and maybe like, I don't know, the fire one, just in case you want it. That's still a decent amount of value added in.
Yeah, but overall you're going to struggle doing that turn 3 5/5 that doesn't really do much else.
Yep, so with that said, 2 stars. Advantage bringer, but pretty low tempo.
Yeah, and 3 of those cards, we'll say 2 for now because you only saw 2 of the 3 that I'm talking about are bad cards.
Yep.
So light elemental is at least decent. Next up is Power of the Emperor. It's a 1 green quick cast. Target J resonator gains +6/+6 until end of turn. It's not that bad of a card, but unfortunately it gets completely outcast class by a card that we already got in Ancient Knights.
No, that was a starter deck card.
Even worse.
This card was outpowered by Winds of Vitality, which is the exact same effect, but it's spirit magic, so it already works with Gil.
Yeah. I would have really liked to see this card been Aura, but I guess that wouldn't have worked with the art and the name that they chose for it, but it is what it is.
Yep, so kind of a throwaway, but 1 star. Meh.
1 star. Draft card. Next up is Reincarnation of the Holy Tree, Yggdrasil. It's a 0/8 for 2 green, and it's an ethereal tree elemental. Whenever another resonator you control is put into a graveyard from the field, search your deck for a resonator with total cost less than that resonator, reveal it and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck.
So the reason that we put this at a 1 star, even though it's got like, searching effects and extra stuff, is that it assumes that you already have a board, and on turn 2, you're gonna swing in with a 1-drop and search out a 0 cost resonator. It's just a lot of stuff has to go really, really right for this thing to go off properly, and I just don't think you'll be able to create a deck around it.
It's like Cult Master from Hearthstone. There's a reason why that card isn't that good.
Yep.
Well, it's a decent card, but in Force of Will, especially since you have to get things that cost less than the thing that died, it's kind of hard to utilize it. You don't really want the things that your resonators on board to die if you can control it.
Right, exactly. So, unfortunately, Yggdrasil with your new form there, your very nice looking new form, just not good enough. Sorry.
1 star.
Yep.
Cedar of Birth. All right, so this is our only chance story that we get from this new set. It's a 3-will, and it says put target resonator with total cost 1 and target resonator with total cost 2 from your graveyard into the field. Not bad.
Yeah, definitely not bad. Obviously, this is not usable in Wanderer. Well, this is technically usable in Wanderer, but not that good in Wanderer because Sherry's gone. But in New Frontiers, you can definitely create some really weird combo potential just because Sherry basically gives this thing pseudo quick cast.
Pseudo quick cast, and it starts in your opening hand if you want to play it.
Yep.
Which
exactly.
you might want to since Rune Story's banned.
Oh yeah, that's a good thing to remember. Thanks, Joe.
So if you want to do memes, your big target is Flame Dragon of Altia for the 2-drop. You get a 12/12 flyer out of your graveyard which is pretty good for a 3-drop. And I don't know, you got a Tama for the 1 cost. You draw a card on top of that, and that's a pretty sick card. Otherwise, if you just do it tempo wise, I know Mike was thinking of using it with Eva, but Eva's banned, so no longer you have to worry about that. Just a reminder that there's no up 2 on this card. You have to have a 1-cost resonator and a 2-cost resonator in your grave to activate and resolve this.
So I think the targets now are, if you're trying to build the standard Sherry control, it's either Tama or The Last Audience, and then probably like Shahrazad's Marionette or something.
Spoiler. That's a card that's coming up.
It's coming up, but it's not much of a spoiler.
It's not something that's going to bring Sherry to new heights, but it's definitely an option that she's going to run, and not going to run, but you know, she could think about running it. It's one of the stories that you can consider slotting in over one of the more situational ones, considering her extra deck has become a lot more situational. So Cedar of Birth is probably going to be played, so keep a lookout for it.
Yep, exactly.
Next up is Spirit Searching. It's a 2-will chant spirit magic. Search your deck for a chant, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck.
Yep, so this thing's actually pretty solid. Again, it's meant to work with, most of the time it's going to be working with Gil, especially on his flip side, because this is essentially just a free chant on his flip.
It's weird though, because Gil was already searching a chant for free on his flip side.
Yeah, so it's just like added benefits for some reason.
It's interactive and is a decent way to spend the 2-will that you get for banishing out an elemental from your grave, but I guess maybe you'd be better off just using whatever you search using the Ultra Awakening.
Well, think about this. You pull out the elemental, you play Spirit Searching, you search for Severing Winds, you put the 2 elementals back, search for Severing Winds, and then your opponent can't play.
Yep, and that's New Frontiers.
Why isn't Severing Winds banned?
Because of rotation, I guess, but still.
Whatever.
Spirit Searching is definitely a decent card. It is a bit expensive, and it's only a 1-for-1, but if Faria Summon saw play as a way to search Resonators for 2-will, Spirit Searching being a 2-will way to search chants is still good.
Yep, so 2 stars. Probably not going to see wide play, but sees enough good... Well, there's enough good cards that it searches out for the cost to where it might actually see some play.
I love how Spirit Searching looks like Majora's Mask.
I like that too, and it looks like, for a second, if you look at Gil really quickly, it looks like he's on the phone with someone.
Yeah,
Listen, dude, I'm trying to find a spirit. Can you just call me back later? I'm just not having a good time.
That's funny. Next is the End of Dreams, which is probably the worst green card in this set.
And that's saying something, because it's green removal.
Yeah. It's a 4-will chant, no quick cast, put target resonator on the bottom of its owner's deck.
This is like outclassed 3 different ways by Soul Debt.
Yeah. Soul Debt hasn't been seen play since its release. And I might start seeing play again, so don't take that too personally. But End of Dreams is nowhere near as good as Soul Dead.
Yep. So too expensive, not reactive enough.
Not
1
quick
star.
cast. Yeah, too expensive. What else? Is there anything else that End of Dreams does? Sorry, that Soul Dead does that.
Hey,
End of
whoa! I
Dreams
see
doesn't.
I see one advantage. End of Dreams can target your own stuff, so you can put something on the bottom of your own deck.
I guess that's an advantage.
Yeah. So once you play that Ragnarok, you can just be like, I don't want this anymore. Put it on the bottom of your deck.
10 will combos.
The memes.
All right, so when you pull out that combo, here's the last audience that you'll see for that, because they're gonna leave. 1 will 0/7 doll. Your opponent must block this card if able. Your opponent must attack this card if able. What?
It's just so much built-in defense for some reason.
Like, what the heck is this card?
I mean, it's the only 1-drop doll now. Well, I think it's the only 1-drop doll ever.
Yes.
So,
Unless there was like a 3/4 puppet. And, no, I'm probably misremembering that. Anyway, so the weird thing about Last Audience is that, like, it's a really good card if you can buff it consistently.
yep. But if not, it's weak.
Yeah, 0/7's not gonna get anywhere. So all I can say is 1 star. I don't know what else to say about this card. It's just
Yeah.
like, how are you going to get a 0/7 off the ground and make it strong?
I guess if we see Buff Sherry, but I don't think we're going to see Buff Sherry.
Oh, I can't wait for when they play Pile Cook Sylvia and then continuously give this +4/+4.
Yes, now we're thinking of the right memes.
Anyway, let's
1
move on
star.
to the next card. Yeah, 1 star for that. I didn't even think we had to say it. Next up is Time Composing Elf. 1 will 4/4. Good stats. It's an elf. Good raise. Look at the top card of your deck. You may put it on the bottom of your deck. Okay. That's that power creates something, I think.
Yep, Power Crept Elf on the Gusty Hill, I think is what it's called. Just a 4/4 vanilla elf. Just give
Right.
it a Hydromonica effect.
Which doesn't really matter too much. I mean, I guess the turn you play it before you're untapped, you tap it once to cycle a card, but how did you know what the top card of your deck was? I don't know. Card does look kind of like Shion, which is kind of silly, but it's an elf, so it isn't.
Right. But main thing is that the card just doesn't do anything on turn 1. It Power Creeps a bad card, but it's still just bad. Doesn't do anything, so 1 star.
1 star. Next up is Vivian, the Envoy of Rebirth. 3 will 6/5 fairy. When this card enters the field, put target non-magic stone card from your graveyard into your hand. Mike, I think you had this at 3 star because you thought it related to Frigg a little bit.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like the big Frigg replacement in New Frontiers. Once, Lapis Cluster rotates out, but again, it's just a little... Well, the fact that it's earlier than Frigg is also kind of cool because you can just kind of retain a little bit of advantage and some mild tempo, but Frigg just has so much extra value built into it with the 3 cards you can get back that I think Vivian just kind of pales in comparison no matter what.
Yeah, and whenever Frigg pulls out the chant, that's what's going to really make the difference between Vivian and Frigg. Also the 8/8 body versus a 6/5. Frigg's 2 will more, but there is a big difference between the two of them. The Frigg loops matter a lot because you are getting an extra card out of it. It's not just infinite value.
Oh my god,
Cycling
okay.
is 1 resonator.
I just thought of something. This card is 5 stars in Origin.
Yeah, probably. Because it starts Frigg loops in Origin.
No, I was talking about the fact that Origin has Time of Ragnarok, which destroys a ruler. This card says non-magic stone card. That probably could include a ruler, so you can put a ruler back into your hand.
When you kill the ruler, does it even go to the graveyard? I don't even know.
I have no idea how that card works. You think I know Valhalla rulings? I'm thinking of garbage right now.
All right, don't listen to Mike. 2 stars. It's a decent card, but it's not insane. If you're playing fairies, you might play this because it is a fairy that draws a card, and that's not bad.
Yep, agreed.
Next up is Whirling Winds, which is a pretty good card. It's
I think
one
this
will.
is technically at least for the seal deck, this is absolutely the best aura.
Maybe.
Depending on the variant. Again, we mentioned that seal was really hard
It's-
to work with.
It's really hard to say that when Resuscitating Will is an aura, and that card's just really strong without being an aura.
Yep.
So I don't know about that, but Whirling Winds is probably the easiest aura to use. I'll
Yes,
say that.
it's the most concise with the aggressive CL plan.
Anyway, let's talk about what the card does. It's 1 will, quick cast, draw a card, or remove target attacking J Resonator from battle. It's a worse version of Scarlet's Agony, but it has the aura type instead of the story type.
And it's technically not worse, I would say. Like, obviously it doesn't do both things, but Scarlet's Agony
get to
only
choose.
it only lets you draw if there was something you could remove from battle. This one lets you just pick and choose your battles there.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. I also love, I think that's Tama hanging onto the cat.
Yeah,
To the hat. Yeah,
cat
It's not
hanging
some-
onto the hat.
yeah. Dr. Seuss going on. So obviously turn 1, if you open with this, you use a draw card or use it for a defensive option if you're playing against Keurig or some other type of aggro ruler. That helps you get that first aura on, which can tempo out into your fast judgment, or if you are going for the more controlling option, it's just cantripping for digging into whatever combo you're trying to go for with Seal, which is all good in my opinion.
Yep, absolutely.
3 stars. It's not game breaking. It's very well balanced and does exactly what you need to do.
Yep, fits all the right bills.
Yep.
The card that does not do that is Windblade Elf.
Yeah. Windblade Elf is a 2 will 6/6 elf.
with wind breathing.
Wind. What'd you call it? Butt breathing if it gains defense.
Yeah, so it's got both fire breathing and butt breathing for one green.
So it breathes air. Wow.
Oh, crazy.
So,
So every time Windblade Elf breathes air, it gains +1/+1.
There's nothing special about this card. A 2 will 6/6 is okay, and you're never going to play that in Constructed. A 3 will 7/7, calm yourself. Yeah,
Rough.
don't play that. There's a lot of better 2-drops in Wind, and this is not one of them, so
Yep.
1 star.
Yeah, exactly. Next.
Yeah, you can start this one.
So Winds of Guidance, another aura for the Featsing deck. It's 2 will chant, and you search your deck for 3 chants, put them into the grave, then shuffle your deck. This card we've been very back and forth on. Obviously,
Yeah,
it's really, really good for the Featsing deck. If you can get it off early enough, you could just start attaching the auras as you go along, get your full judgment, get all the effects you want, gain Perishable, all of the above. Only thing is that, well, besides that, it also has really good applications with Remnant cards, which is one of
You
the
basically
big...
draw a half card for every Remnant card you dump with this card.
Yep, but the only thing is that we had rated it pretty highly before True Blade of Spirits ended up getting banned.
Yeah, there is a little bit of like growing pains with this card from that, but Winds of Guidance is definitely going to see play in some manner. Being able to dump, I don't know, Distortion of Time is decent. That helps you out a bit.
Yep.
There are a lot of spells that just benefit from being engraved. Think of Foolish Burial of Goods from Yu-Gi-Oh, which is that's just a spell that you dump a spell with. So, and then that card winds up being pretty good because there are activate for free in Yu-Gi-Oh. Be on the radar for this card because this card could generate a lot of pluses if we get something free in the graveyard.
Yeah, something big also to remember about this card is that in Wanderer, this sees a lot of really cool applications. Ditching like a Dance of Shadows early enough in a Reanimator build with this and then be able to like cast it on turn 3 with the Remnant, get out like Umar, do the Lumia combo with Umar. There's a lot of really cool stuff you can do with that regard.
Yep. Also, you can combo this card with Spinning Alkasol, so that makes it 3 Will Search Chant. I know we just went over Spirit Searching, which is 2 Will Search a Chant, but that also, you already dumped a bunch of other chants into the grave, which you could have with Remnant, so you like draw 2 halves of a card, so a whole card, and then add back whatever you're looking for. There's a bunch of applications with this card, and then it also works in Seal if you want to just dump a bunch of auras and slowly attach auras once per turn.
Yep, so, and the card being an aura itself is also really, really good for that exact game plan. So, Winds of Glen sees some really, really strange but very interesting applications, and I think that it's one of the probably one of the best designed green cards we've seen for a while, especially for the archetype that is trying to pull on.
Yep. Nothing too oppressive off the start besides maybe Lorite's Disciples, but anyway, we still have one more card to go over before we
and that one's a really big one.
And that's Winds of Salvation, which is a 3 Will quick cast, remove target spell from the game. It's a chant aura, so that's a boon for it. This card competes with Banish, which is 3 wind to cancel something.
Yep, because removing target spell from the game means that you're pulling it away from the chase. The card won't resolve properly.
Yep, so
which means it's essentially, just like 3 will cancel that also removes the spell from the game, which is actually a pretty big deal, especially for like Remnant cards or cards that you want to get back, like auras with a fellow Feetsing.
That's actually bad if they're playing that special stone and you banish out there.
Oh jeez, we'll get into the stone later.
Winds of Salvation is just, in my opinion, it's a better version of Vanish, unless you're playing Gil. Gil's going to play Vanish because it's Spirit Magic. Every other deck would probably play Winds of Salvation if they want a 3 Will hard cancel. Which, with Otherworld Dreams gone and Wanderer, you could see it. It competes with Exceed and other things. And also, banishing Resonators. I completely forgot that spell can mean Resonator.
Yep, absolutely. You can cancel a Resonator and just remove it from the game.
Yeah, that's definitely the biggest upside to that. Banishing out Resonators is huge.
The only reason this thing isn't any higher is just because that 3 cost that you really can't avoid, I'd say.
Yeah. It's hard to play, but again, Otherworld Dreams being gone is good to play.
Yep.
So now we'll go into the graph for how Wind wind up faring in the set. They didn't do too great. They didn't get something that's just like bam, green again.
They didn't get Lorite or Rachel.
Right. Everything's pretty balanced. There's a couple of standout cards that are pretty strong, but otherwise you're still kind of pointing towards the bottom end of the spectrum.
Yep. Wind sees 15 cards, 2 or below, so that's pretty much in line with what we're supposed to see.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's pretty much everything we have for Wind. Not much else to talk about. Good support for elementals, good support for auras, and good Lorite support.
Lorite's now its own deck. So I guess we're going to thank you for watching. That was episode 2. Next episode we'll be finishing up with Darkness and basically all the rest of the cards.
Like, anything like dual colored stones, yada yada yada.
92 onward, but who cares?
Whatever.
So with that, any other closing thoughts you want to add to this?
No, a neon green pretty much drains the brain. So this has been Mike
and Joe
from Deepwood Force Will signing out.
Thanks for watching. Bye.